Quantum human. We're now going to talk about the science of today. Not the science of the future, but what we know. Now here at Hippocrates, we actually were the spearhead of the entire progressive health movement. Way back in 1956, when our founder was told that she had 3 months to live and endured catastrophic cancer, the Harvard doctors turned out to be wrong. She then recognized 70 years ago the failing healthcare system was at play. And she opened the doors of the first lifestyle medicine center on the planet Earth. Integrative healthcare, alternative healthcare, all of the things that today we call the wellness movement were born at Hippocrates in Boston. We continue to be the tip of the spearhead. And today we're going to actually bring all of you, and hopefully the doctors out there as well, along the way and let you understand what's possible. Things we do here on this campus and have done for 45 years with energy medicine. But it's an amazing story. And it's one that we have to leave behind a lot of the formerly comfortable arenas that we were trained in. We have to progress. We have to move on from where we've been. Because seemingly, what we're doing now, as good as it may be, is not as good as it may be in the future. So we're going to move now directly into science and talk about unexplained phenomena. What is that? These are basic things that we don't know. And so we are establishing biology, chemistry, and physics with a very, very weak foundation. And the first one is really an interesting one, and probably why we fail so much when it comes to your well-being, and why doctors, be it alternative doctors or mainstream doctors, really are awkward. And when one thing doesn't work, they throw another one at the wall. We don't know where the origin of life comes from. Today we're going to touch on that, but we're only beginning to understand the comprehensive connectivity we have to multiple universes and how you're actually constructed of energy and magnetic fields more than you are cells and tissue and organs and bones. So when we don't know where the origin of life comes from, can you imagine how we could possibly know how to help you when your life is at peril? Mind-body connection. There's nobody that doesn't know that this exists. And by the way, we employ this and have for 7 decades here at the Institute. But the truth of the matter is, do we really understand how this works energetically and biochemically? We can observe what happens after the body-mind connection occurs. But the mechanism on how to make it occur, we're still working on. We're edging closer and closer to that every single year. Genetic memory. I remember a long time ago, back 40, 50 years ago, we used to talk about generational trauma. It was almost mystical at that point. And today we recognize in mainstream healthcare and the best of psychology and psychiatry that you may have had traumatic experiences imposed upon your genes 100 generations ago. We also know that the personalities of different cultures in different geographic areas of the world may have become that because of the trauma that was imposed upon that group of people or that culture. We also understand today how this can be unraveled. Now, we use energy devices to do this and unique psychotherapy in our psychoneuroimmunology department. But this is overlooked almost always with progressive doctors as well as mainstream doctors. No longer can it be. Longevity and aging. Until recently, we could not figure this one out. In the perfect world, as a cell dies, a little stem cell comes and replaces it. So then why do we age? Why has the life expectancy in the last 6 years plummeted 5 years? Well, it's all of the environmental factors. Today we name this epigenetics, but it's much bigger and much broader than that. And we understand here at the Institute that you can refine the way that you perceive the world, and more so, strengthen the body's anatomical reserve and resources to prevent the embellishing effect that these epigenetic events may have on you. This is an amazing time we have in science, and we really can make significant breakthroughs and bring people back to peace and harmony and health. That's our aspiration here as a leader. We continue to lead, and we hope that you listen to what we have to say today. Placebo and nocebo has been looked at for over 100 years with the top scientists. Nobel laureate level scientists get together every few years and construct a list of the 10 most unexplained phenomena that we know are absolutely happening, but we don't know how they happen. Number one for 111 years has been placebo. You say, what's a nocebo? When something good's happening to you and you don't believe it, that's a nocebo. But something may be happening to you that isn't good, but if you believe in it, you can actually supersede the poor thing that would make you sick otherwise. So this is something we use here in our comprehensive cancer program. Matter of fact, Dr. Ranecki, who leads that program, was a partner for 25 years and traveled the globe with Dr. Carl Symington, who used placebo. He called it visualization. And our objective is to eliminate the nocebo so that you don't have blockages. Blockages are your enemy. So the quantum human is an amazing, amazing person, and that's who you are. Can you imagine that you're much greater than you ever could have dreamed of? That you have much greater abilities and strengths and inner reserve than you actually could imagine in the past? So we're not solely biochemical. We're actually swimming and interacting in this wonderful field of energy. We don't see it. Now, the world that you've been brought up and the science that we've all studied teaches us what you see is real and what you don't see is not real. Many years ago, I was confronted by one of my close friends who's a psychologist, and he said to me, "Have you seen love?" And I was emphatic, "Yes, I've seen love." And he led me deeper into me being committed to I've seen love. And he said, "Well, what does love look like?" And I started to describe what I felt. And he said, "No, tell me what it looks like." And after exhausting 5 or 6 attempts, I realized I had never seen love, but I've never felt anything more powerful, nor have you. And as a matter of fact, it's self-love that you're swimming in an energy field that interconnects with other people and heals you. Your connection with other people, even with creatures, your pets, enhance your well-being because their frequencies make your frequency brighter and stronger. Forests do, as you're going to learn as we go into this. So this ocean of electromagnetic frequency influences your health. And so we actually use technology here to help bring that to a higher, stronger, and better level. That's where medicine is right now as we speak. And that's where it will go once we get the dogma out of the way. We look at the immersion in the energetic fields. Now there's also, unfortunately, because of modern technology, that you and I are using as we speak. I'm sitting here in a studio, a TV studio, and around me I have negative frequencies. You're watching me either on a computer or on a TV screen. And these renegade frequencies are counterproductive to our health. Now, there's ways, as we know, we can prevent that. At my home, I have 2 technologies that take away everything, including 5G frequencies. Around my neck, I have something we worked along with German physicists to create. But we're not going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about you being a little congruent, a little awake about where you're working, where you're living. Do you have your Wi-Fi turned on constantly? Outside of your window, in your home or your apartment, in your city or your town or your village, do you have big antennas that are there? These are counterproductive to your normal occurring bioenergy fields. These currents influence cellular communication, so cells get confused when they can't speak to one another. And that's not a theory. A Nobel Prize was given to Dr. Bell in 1999 when he showed how cells communicate through hormones and proteins. And this biorhythm, when it's thrown off, gets confused and can create what we perceive as biological disorder, which is really biofrequency and biocurrent disorder. So we can treat this differently than we've done in the past. Now, it sounds like we're really, really into super science and we're brainiacs, but the truth is our ancient cultures understood all of this. They understood energy fields more than you can imagine. If you have an Italian ancestry or a Greek ancestry, do you realize they would not build buildings where there were renegade electric fields? And remember, they didn't have 5G or cell phones or cell towers then. We're talking about underground currents. So there were people who were gifted and scientifically, incrementally motivated to go out and feel, is this an area you want to build a structure? You may also note that the structures were round because they recognized, as we have here on this property, 2 of our main constructs where people are getting treatments and therapy are round, that you actually open up people's hearts, souls, minds, and allow energy to move in a concrete way as your cells do, as your blood circulatory activity does, as the currents in the ocean do, and has the Earth itself on its axis rotates. Isn't that amazing? So round is good. Today, as we speak, there's a tribe of bush people in Australia that actually send a scout out that has a gift seemingly, and he may go 100 or 200 miles away sometimes. And as a tribe wants to move in that season, when he arrives in an area that he feels suitable, his eyes become a video camera. And now, instinctually, the tribe receives that information and sees and determines through his eyes if or if not they want to move. You say, well, this is impossible. The only thing that's impossible is what you think is impossible. Again, it's called a nocebo. I'm sure a lot of people were told things were impossible in the past. Men will never walk on the moon. Some of you still don't think that happened. People will never fly. We can never use a phone without a wire. One of the most exciting times in my life when I was young, they made a very long wire so you could walk away from the telephone itself. So open up your minds, heart, and souls, people. This is real science. Remember, science is not an absolute. Science is, as Ernest Hemingway would have said, a moving feast. It is not concrete. And one of the mistakes we've made science concrete, established it, create academics around it, so that's when it stops growing. Modern science confirms geological and electromagnetic conditions influence health. You may note everything I'm speaking about today is referenced. Look at the bottom of your screen, and we welcome you to learn more, because we're just touching on the tip of what is written in my newest book, Quantum Human. And Quantum Human is out. Simon & Schuster is doing a big blast of this on May the 5th. And if you're really interested in what you can do for your well-being and that of your family and that of the human race, you may want to delve into this. This is a compilation of understanding and knowledge that we've developed ever since the mid-20th century. And I think it's only fair that we share that with you and healthcare professionals so we can all help you at a higher and better level, more effective level. Harmonics, frequencies, and cell resonance all sound like big, fancy words, but harmonics and frequencies are patterns that affect your cellular metabolism, the way your cell works and functions and takes food in and releases food and energy and all of this. And intercellular communication, go back to what I said about 4 minutes ago, that ever since '99, we have concrete evidence that cells communicate through hormones and proteins. What are neuroreceptor sites up in the brain? Well, what are they receiving information from? And how do you think? When I pinch my finger, how does my brain say, oh, that hurts? When I stub my toe, all of that interconnectivity is a cellular language. And that cellular language is enhanced only with raw, green, organic, plant-based food. But we'll delve into that a little bit later. Coherent energetic input improves cellular synchronization and function. So here we have about 8 different technologies. I just decided the other day to bring another one in. And what these all are calibrated to do is to get the resonance, frequency, and harmony, harmonics, that means, of each cell to the level it was, hopefully, when you were just born. You were this energetic field. You were so irresistible. That's why when a baby shows up, everyone wants to hug and kiss the baby because it's representing that harmonic frequency, that youth, that vibrance, that well-being. And we all need to have that maintained throughout our entire life. As we age, the switch should not dim. It should maintain the light and the love and the harmony and the peace and the well-being that all of us have as a birthright. Now, these are some of the testing that the day guests arrive every Sunday, 52 days a year. We have never stopped receiving guests for 7 decades. We look at brains and their burgeoning frequency. And what do we determine in a 5-minute period? So these highly sophisticated scans that someday we pray doctors will start to use, and even further mandated to use, because these are so revealing. We can go deeper than just the blood test, which we also do. The blood test shows us where there's problems. This shows us where there's solutions. Big difference. And so we look at the brain. In this case, this brain is pretty functional. So it's pretty well balanced. And we're giving you an exceptional person so we don't frighten anyone out there today. You see what we see, it's pretty scary. If you look at the brain there at the bottom, the blue, that is very, very, very unique. I see that in 1 out of 2,000 people like this. So this person's totally balanced. The energy is moving from the brain downward through the neurological system and their vagus nerve and upward in a very sophisticated and proper way. And it shows on all of these charts for our medical team here where we need to increase energy or decrease energy. The spine is so powerfully important because the spine is actually what holds your whole skeletal structure up, but it's a communicator. It's sort of like the dispatcher at the taxi service. Go here, go there, bring that person back, bring that person north, south, east, or west. And this one, again, is extraordinary. It's almost 100% as you see up and down. The other day, I was looking at somebody that had all the energy at the bottom, no energy in the middle, no energy at the top. And notably, they constantly and chronically have headaches, and they have pain shooting almost as if they're having heart attacks in that part of their body. By the time they leave this institute, because of our energy medicine department, and even more of the traditional therapies like acupuncture, there will be a radical improvement. You look at the screen here too. When I was young, they used to say, oh, this was, Eastern philosophy. But now in mainstream medicine, we use what used to be called chakras, energy fields, to determine how people are emotionally and universally connected. And this can determine a lot. We've seen in dozens and dozens of cases where people say, well, I'm on my third marriage. I've never had long-term relationships. In 100% of those cases, we see that their heart area never has enough respect and love and honor given to it. They almost run away from the heart area. So we can glean an awful lot more than just seeing the blood test. Combination of all of these things give us 21st century insight into your well-being. Subtotal energies diagnosis. So this is where we take your fingers that lead to every organ system. Now, what's amazingly interesting is that your fingertips, your eyes, your irises, that's called iridology, and your hands, as well as your feet, all are connected to organ systems. So in this case, we can actually see, is the liver, is the heart, is the gallbladder, is the spleen working the way it should? Now, usually you do these highly radioactive scans that, yes, we get views, but not as well as we get through these energy field or subtotal energy diagnostic tools. And we're not getting if it works or doesn't work, we're getting whether or not it's broken or not broken. Now, that's important. We're not saying that that's not important, but we can actually fix things before they really break in this methodology. Subtotal energy fields can be imagined, guided early interventions are actually things that we do here. So if I see you're starting to go south in one area, we say that's the treatment, that's the therapy, that's the supplement, that's the food that you best work with. Adjusting these fields can prevent disease progression. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we could say to people, all doctors are using this technology, and we can eradicate the vast majority of disorders that you may have a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, even 20 or 30 years from now, because all of us have areas of our minds, our bodies, that we're not caring to as well as we should. What's also remarkable is how the etheric and biological body works. Now, the etheric body has been talked about in theology and philosophy from the dawn of time. You go back to the earliest religions, Buddhism and the Eastern philosophies, to the main religions today, Christianity, Judaism here in the West, to the more esoteric religions. They all talked about the spirit. We now measure this in the 21st century science, quantum biology. And we're as acutely interested in this as we are anything else about the individual. Beyond the physical body lies an etheric or biofield layer, an energetic blueprint influencing physiology. If we tweak it, organ systems start to change. Distribution in this biofield can precede physical symptoms. So disruption of that can actually cross-circuit the patterns of disorder and distribute it correctly through the body. We now no longer have a roadblock that creates a physical disorder. We take the roadblock out of the way. Biofrequency medicine, that's the term I'd like you to put into your head. Say that again, biofrequency medicine applies controlled electromagnetic fields And this restores cellular balance. Now you say, well, gee, why don't I hear this at my holistic doctor? Because they're interested in chemistry. They've been trained conventionally by allopathic pharmaceutical medicine. And although they're doing better than they did, they're still in the 1970s and 1980s. And congratulations to them, because at least they got off the bandwagon of deceit, deception, and disorder. But they have to move now further, vigorously and effectively, into what we now know. These are not speculative ideas we're coming into today. These are applied technologies with advanced physicists, advanced medical doctors, advanced biologists all over the globe. And here at the Institute, we've been working with this since my wife, Anna Marie, and I became directors in 1980. That's 45 years now. Studies show the ability to reduce inflammation, enhance cellular repair, that's a biggie, remember that, among many other cellular benefits. Now remember, if you have a big tumor, that's abnormal cells. What happens when you take that tumor away through diligent lifestyle adaptations? How are you going to rebuild healthy cells there so we don't have weakened tumors? The body's ready to do that. You just have to wrap your mind and commitment around it. That's what we train you to do here. Electromagnetic cells. Every single cell in your body have these wonderful magnetites in it. Now, all of you probably have seen a magnetite. Etch-a-Sketch, even when I was a little boy, was a little plastic screen that you had little round knobs at the bottom, and you could make beautiful pictures out of that. That's magnetites. How many of you knew that every one of your 100 trillion cells have magnetites in it? And why are they there? For that electromagnetic communication to hold together all of the cells into a bone, as an example, or into a liver, into a kidney, into a brain. And furthermore, it connects you to other people and your environment. One of the most amazing things, if I put you in a pitch dark room and you hear no sound and see no light, if I sneak up behind you, you will actually feel me, because your magnetites will connect to my magnetites. Now, this very subtle and powerful energy can be worked with to make you well and to prevent the premature aging process. How do I know this? We've been doing it here for a very long time. And we know that science will catch up to this, because sadly, it generally takes 35 to 45 years for brilliance to get into usable forms, if they ever make it. Internal healing resources. Now, how many of you ever remember you had a big wound at one point? You may have been completely worried and went to the hospital and the doctors had to sew it up because you were bleeding. You thought, oh my God, I'm getting weak. And that went away. And if that were 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, if I said, where was that wound? Most of you couldn't even tell me where that wound is now. Isn't that interesting? So if that wound was healed and you no longer even have that in your imagination or memory, what is it we can't heal? But your belief system determines whether or not you can heal something. But if the belief system is a disorder is so big and they give it a name, it's categorically number 4. It's catastrophic. Then you have, unfortunately, Dr. Google. And Dr. Google, by the way, is going to give you every opinion that you can possibly imagine on any subject. And at the end of the day, they're not very good if you have catastrophic disease. Because most people that spend most of their time on the internet don't have a life, so they want to be negative, and they want everyone to be as sad and as miserable as they are. Tune into Dr. You. Dr. You is much better than Dr. Google, because you've been able to heal in the past, and I promise you, you're able to heal right now too. Use your inner resources, your power, your strength, the magnetic fields, the energy, the frequencies, the harmonics that you were born with that are representing who you really are. align with your internal energy flows, can lead to spontaneous healing. The least I've ever seen in my 55 years of work is 3 people have spontaneous remissions. So this is a term that allopathic medicine imposed upon us. This is unexplained phenomena. So here a person is actually diagnosed with a very major problem. Maybe a tumor. Let's give a story. It's a 3-pound tumor. And in the best case scenario, if a person really understands the inner self and uses the tools that we'll be talking about at the end of this presentation, in 2.5 to 3 years, they recover. But this person, by the way, recovers in 2 to 3 months. Now, if you ask me in my biological mind, can that happen? Impossible. You can't break down a 2 to 3 pound tumor in 2 months, 60 days, 65, 70 days. So how does it happen? Because the person has a major emotional and spiritual shift, and their energy field is what guides that and powers that. The most I've seen is 7 in a year. And I wasn't really too astute at the beginning. It took me till 20 years ago to start asking the questions. And the answer I chronically got from people who brought about rapid recoveries, rapid healings, is they faced their demise. They finally realized if they did not do something, very rapidly, they may die. So if you have to face your demise to do the right thing, whatever it takes, do it. But understand, you are the only one that can heal yourself. Anyone that's telling you they're going to heal you, it's baloney. And we don't eat baloney here. So science supports energy medicine. So what happened for many, 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 many generations is those people who were using more esoteric, as they used to label it, or Eastern or non-Western philosophies were looked down at. And the West took control of the steering wheel and started to lead the world in every possible way imaginable, economically, through our entertainment. And so the rest of traditional lifestyles sort of to go into the back seat. And Western arrogance in mainstream medicine and even so-called natural medicine was abundant. And universities that were representative of disseminating Western medicine basically condemned certain kinds of energy medicine that had been around for thousands of years sometimes. So finally, the energy medicine continuum came out of the closet and went to the top universities and said, you show us how this doesn't work. So they challenged them. They said, it doesn't work. So I've seen in my lifetime many highly educated people having opinions on things they know nothing about. Somehow highly educated, academically educated people have a license, they believe, to have opinions when they know nothing about it. So if you look at this, they went to UCLA and Yale University, among others. I could give a list of 50 different major universities, and they found Qigong, acupuncture, Tai Chi, all of these traditional energy medicine modalities work. There is a hospital today in China that has 50,000 documented reversal cases of advanced cancer from Qigong. That's what they do. You say, well, Brian, how come I don't know this? Just don't be political, don't be naive, don't be innocent. Awaken yourself. If people don't want to know, they don't want to know. And if people don't want to tell, they don't want to tell. You've got to search for your level of commitment to life. And unless you're willing to do that, don't blame others for blocking you from knowledge. Knowledge is incredibly available. It's what I call in one of my books, Emo Spirit, the invisible library. You just have to let go of all of this nonsense and you can immediately tap into it. So these practices reduce pain, enhance immune function. What is more important than that? Nothing. Once we get your immune system to take charge, all disorder goes away. And immune systems you look at as biology, I look at as biofrequency. And this enhances all the subtle energies. Once you start to run in the right direction, all of the movement of cells and energy come behind you, and that's where there's a cascade of recovery. Now, this shows you what is happening to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when the sun's not visible. Humans are light beings. About 10 years ago, I did a worldwide lecture tour on We Are Light. And today, my God, a decade later, we have 5 times more science data on this. Biophotons, that's energy from the sun, is what actually makes you who you are. Now, let me go slow so that you don't miss what I'm saying. If we reverse engineer, as they say, what creates your physical body, over here it's invisible frequencies called photons that come down after protons shoot themselves off the sun, but move so fast they disassemble into light, photons, and they're captured on green leafy plants. If you watch closely at the wonderful film at the introduction of this, you saw the original solar collector. It's called chloroplast. Chloroplasts are on every single green plant, and green plants were the very first life forms on this planet. So these lights actually manifest John and Mary and Harry and redwood trees and grass and your dog and the cats and the lions and everything that is alive today and everything on this planet Earth, including dead rocks, came from photonic energy that manifested into matter. Photonic emission reflects health. So how many of you have seen when a glowing, happy, healthy, kind, wonderful person comes into the room? You visibly see the photonic energy. And we say the word glow. They glow. Your second sense, as we say, is picking what we now are talking about up. Now, our job here at the Institute, in our mind, has always been to get the glow factor larger, bigger, and more abundant. And the more you glow, the less you age. The more you glow, the less disease and disorder you have. And the more you glow, the more connected you are to the multiple universes and to kindness, peace, harmony, and well-being. Meditation, as an example, increases your coherence of this glow factor, the photonic energy, and improves systemically throughout your whole body the glow factor. So when it comes in, it may be all isolated in an area because you're resistant, as we talked a little bit earlier about a person who has little to no energy in the heart, has a hard time in relationships. But when we meditate, we actually take that energy and spread it from your head to your toe. And then we're going to have the super glow factor, as we say. And that's where we all want to be. Positive emotions and HRV. One of the many tests we do here is biological versus chronological age. And people say, well, you know, when I come in, I was 70, but I'm really 50. And now when I'm leaving after the 3-week or the cancer program, 4-week program, I'm 35. How did I lose so many years? And we just saw this case last week where somebody lost 35 years. And we said, well, the difference is that you changed your way of seeing the world. That when you came in here, you were told by your own words, 18 doctors that you were going to die. That here you took back your life and reimagined your future and took away the imposing fear of death. And so by doing that, it was unloading the demon, as we say, the blocker. And we saw a rebound of 35 years. The average change here is 15, 16 years, just by relaxing people and enhancing their well-being by the major glow factor beyond emotions called living food. Within only 5 minutes, these are study after study after study. In one of the many books that we wrote called The Self-Healing Diet, we report a meta-study. That's where 22 excellent studies were put together, and statisticians asked the question, what was the one common thing that they found? Well, one of the common things they found in the 7 or 8 countries they conducted these studies in is that 5 minutes of deep prayer, deep meditation, deep contemplation increased your immune system cell by 40%. You can't buy that, people. Why? Because the universe, God, if you will, wired that into you. There's nothing you can imagine that you can't achieve. That's why it's so important to raise your expectation of your own abilities. Nutrition and biofrequency. Photonic energy is captured in the plant, as we mentioned to you, via chloroplast, the universal foundation of life. That's what it is. So all life came from that, a frequency that you can't even see. The only time maybe you can see it is through a prism or through a window at a particular time of the day. You actually see the rays coming down. And even at night, when you don't think that's happening, it's reflecting off the planets and the moon at a much lesser degree than it is in sunlight during the day. And eating raw, organic, plant-based food, and better than all of them, food growing at the time that you bite into it, like microgreens and sprouts, give you an abundance of that photonic energy that actually support the mitochondria, the energy source of every one of your cells, and function at a cellular level that otherwise cannot be achieved without raw plant-based food. What I can say to you is when I became a vegan back in 1969, I thought I'd never be healthier. 1971, when I became a raw food consumer, I realized what health really was at that point. And most important was a shift in the way I could perceive things rather than the fact that my body got well, my spirit got big. Mitochondria dense diet, that's what this is, stabilize the biofield. So you actually connect better with all living things when you have a living food plant-based diet, unlike just a cooked, processed, dead plant-based diet. Doesn't take a lot of imagination to understand that. Emotional frequencies and aging. So if you say, how do people age the quickest? You're emotionally distraught. You believe you're going to age. Doctors actually come up with a myth and they sit in front of you when you're paying them and say, you have getting old disease. There's no such thing as getting old disease. That there are things you're doing that make yourself age, but you're not getting old disease. That's why the tribal areas of the world that live well beyond 100 have joy in them, are fueling themselves on organic plant-based diets, move and exercise like children freely with joy. Positive emotional states and coherent biofields slow aging and support longevity. This is not something we think anymore. This is in the science books. Thermal therapies and movement. So what are some of the things that I've been doing for decades and telling the 300,000 people that I've worked with in my 55 years to do? Saunas. Now, most of you only have available Scandinavian saunas. Nothing wrong with them. Because when you put high frequency heat into the body, it does several things. And why saunas are great detoxification units is because when the cell has high frequency, the debris within the cell starts to come out. And where does it leave? Mostly your skin, the largest organ. The average person eliminates more than 2 pounds of waste through our skin daily, more than the front and the back combined. Now imagine that. This is why saunas are good. And we always say, because we're in the old paradigm of mainstream biology and holistic biology, oh, it's a detoxification. No, it's a high frequency, enhancing your biofrequency field, your magnetic coherence, and that pushes out the debris, because high energy doesn't allow disorder. Now, even better than that is infrared. On this campus, we have 22 infrared saunas. Why? Because what they do is they take out 87% more plastics, heavy metals, and chemicals than the normal saunas do. Then things like steam baths, amazingly good for emotions. And what happens is they work on the kidneys, and they work on the lungs, a water-based organ, and the bladder. And each of these organ systems requires certain frequencies, and thick molecular frequency of water in a steam bath is different than bright, brilliant photonic energy from a sauna. And all of these enhance your cellular energy, as we pointed out. But basic things like walking, every single month, we now realize that walking is probably the #1 best way to exercise. The only thing better than that is swimming. And many of you have chosen to live in God-forsaken places in the world where you can't swim most of the time. But the truth of the matter is that swimming uses 100% of your neurological system and organ system of the body and brain. But the truth is walking comes pretty close. And study came out twice recently that was stunning. It was almost unbelievable, but when the second group did the same thing and came out with the same result, it's believable. That after dinner at night, if you choose to still eat dinner, if you do a 5-minute brisk walk, after 5 years of that, you can prolong your life up to 3 more years. Now, they only looked at a 5-year period. Can you imagine if you do this every day for the next 30 years or 40 years? Climbing. And we first and foremost looked for our whole 70 years for a program that we could embrace as Hippocrates movement and exercise program. It didn't happen until 2 years ago. And we did vigorous testing on people with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and within a matter of 14 days had remarkable improvements in these people. And it's called neurosize, as you see on the screen. And that is conducted here by our exercise physiologist several times a week, and it stretches your body and brain and puts it back together. So a lot that we're speaking about today starts to work with ease. And promoting energy flow is what all of this does, resulting in greater well-being and health. Biofeedback and visualization. So I'll never forget, my first wife's father was a hippie PhD psychology professor who back in the early 1960s, he was at the University of Oregon, would go down to University of California where they have these new fangled disease preventing machines called biofeedback. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you can actually train the brain to change the psychological negative patterns. And I thought, he was smoking too much weed. But I found out later, since we use these kind of machines here, it wasn't wacky. And today, let me tell you, 50 years later, the advancement in these. So there are certain that we use for sleep, coordinating the brain, reducing stress, taking away pain. And this is without opening the body or taking chemistry or doing anything invasive other than the fact to get your body to start working the way that it was meant to work. So biofeedback actually works in remarkable ways. And look at the studies on this. There are thousands of studies on this. Visualization, again, is your own biofeedback. Now, this is where you actually visualize what you want and you make it manifest. You have it happen. You say, well, that sounds unrealistic. Do you know how many times you've done this in your life every single day? Every single day you imagine something and make it happen. But it's so matter of fact that you don't even acknowledge or recognize what you're creating there, what you've manifested. Start to look into these technologies, people. First, your own personal technology that you can use without a machine, and then the enhancement of the machines and the units and the energy medicine. Man, it takes you really to much greater levels than you can imagine. Nature, immersion, and frequency renewal. So there are civilized places in the world that actually care for their citizens. Japan is one point, in fact, where medical doctors, mainstream allopathically trained doctors, can and do write prescriptions for you to walk in the forest. Why? Because they're awake enough to realize forest bathing is what they call it, enhance your immune function. So when people are stressed, you age prematurely, you get more disease, your disease becomes worse, and you don't recover. When people take away stress, what is a medical doctor supposed to be doing? Taking away aging, taking away disease, and preventing disease. So they say, here's a prescription. You've got to take off work once or twice a week, and you've got to walk in the forest for an hour. Now, do you think mainstream medicine would do that if we don't have science to back it? There's abundant amount of science to back this. And do we really need science or common sense? Well, common sense prevails in that one. When you take a holiday, where do you go? Not to a stressful place. And why do you feel so good when you're on the beach, you're walking in the mountains? Point in fact, swimming and cold water immersion invigorate neurological systems and lymphatic systems. And these undertakings raise your connectivity to universal currents. So all I know is that I really knew I was in love with my wife when she moved from Sweden, where they start swimming in April. She wanted me to do that in Boston, which was very similar to the climate in Sweden. And I did it. Now, did I like it? No. But after I came out, I loved it. Getting in was the problem. When I came out, I realized what that does. When you get into nature at a high frequency, where cold, by the way, is a particular frequency, and it hits your body and turns on your nervous system and activates your brain, you're now connected to the multiple universes. That's why I go to cryo twice a week and then get out immediately, go to red light. So I stretch from one sphere to the other sphere and activate all of my systems. And the side effect, I feel better doing that. Nutrition, hydration, and supplementation. One of the problems are that I wrote a book a number of years ago exposing the supplement industry. Now, I'm a big advocate of raw, organic, plant-based, uncooked, unprocessed supplements. I take a number every single day along with Anna Maria. But the reality is over 90% are chemicals that have nothing to do with nature, and by the way, can be detrimental. They are detrimental to you. Your poor body's immune system has to attack them and get rid of them where you think they're benefiting you. And the only benefit may be, if you have a really good imagination, is semi-placebo. But biochemically and energetically, they're not good for you. But the laws prevail where they can say natural and they don't have to be natural. They can say organic, they don't have to be organic. But you, the consumer, love to think you're doing the right thing. In most cases, because you're really not living a lifestyle that's commendable. But along with a commendable lifestyle, I strongly advise, as you're going to see in a minute, how important the right supplements can be. Pure hydration optimizes cellular signaling and energy management. Now, what does that mean? When you look at the way energy moves, there's two vehicles it moves most rapidly through. One is water, which your body and plasma is. 70% or so of your body's water, 80% of your brain is water. And there's a reason for that, because energy moves more rapidly in the brain than even the other parts of the body that need 67, 68%. The second thing is metals. Go back to what I said. Every one of your 100 trillion cells have what? Magnetites in it. So why the energetic fields that we talk about with hormones and photonic energy and protons are communicating with the cells is because you require hydration. Unfortunately, we know the number. Over 6 out of 10 of you are dehydrated. And One of the reasons you're dehydrated, you say, I'm drinking a lot, but you're drinking a lot of coffee or tea or alcohol or dairy food, which actually take away hydration in the body. You're not drinking pure distilled level water or pure fresh organic green juice, that the base is distilled water. Expressive arts and social connection. Now, I never thought when I got into this, because remember, I have a PhD in nutrition, that dancing was as important as what I was saying, but it is. Dancing is, sports are, that these things are really going to engage your energy field. Have you ever been more invigorated than when you've danced or been out with the team or did solo sports? It's unbelievable how you feel. Why? Because you're doing what your ancestors naturally and normally did without being told by an expert to do it. Now, relationships influence this too. So healthy, happy relationships. And by the way, avoid those relationships that are counterproductive to your happiness. Now, I'm not saying don't work on your marriage if it's not good at this point, but if you work on a marriage or a relationship or work that is not harmonious with you, leave. Because there's no better way for me to get you sick than put you in a negative environment where your energy is going to be sucked out of you. Your well-being depends upon this. Healthy social ties correlate with reduced stress, markers, and increased longevity. Matter of fact, it is so absolutely evident today. It's one of the 3 pillars of a long life at this point. Core strategies for life force enhancement. Now, I want you to get your cameras out. You're looking all over the world now. Get those cameras out. We're going to give you some QR codes coming up pretty soon, and things that I've learned over the time working with so many people that are willing candidates to wake up, to become conscious, to become honorable, to become respectful of their life and have gratitude. And that's what we need. We've explored biofields, emotional states, nutrition, the environments, quantum insights. Now we distill these findings to core strategies where I put a 1 to 10. And I didn't put anything below a 5, I guess. I just put that in as a marker. I'm not going to tell you to do anything that's not good for you. Even the 5's so much better than most of us are doing out there on a daily basis. So get those cameras. Number 1 is nature and movement. Forest bathing is a 7 out of 10, 10 being the highest. Swimming, salt water, 8. Why? Salt conducts what? Energy and electric more than fresh water, which is a 6. And then cold fresh water, 7. Immersion for 3 minutes at 35 to 45. Why is that more? Because again, cold, what you and I call temperature, either centigrade or Fahrenheit, is a frequency. Everything's a frequency. Scandinavian saunas is 6. Infrared saunas, an 8. Near infrared, red light, you call it, 8. Steam baths, 6. Whirlpools, 5. By the way, whatever you don't like, which is whirlpool for me, you need the most. And whirlpools do 2 things: pump the lymphatic system and calm people down. Now you know why I don't like it. Walking, a 6. Climbing, a 7. Neurosize, 10 out of 10. So on that page, the 10 out of 10 is engage in Hippocrates exercise movement program, Neurosize. It's online, by the way, if you want to. And all of you who come here on campus with us to join in one of our many, many programs, you're going to have the great advantage to be with an expert on that one. Emotional, creative, and social dimensions. Now look at this. Right at the top, dancing and sports, 9. Who would ever say that? Sadly, we have warped this whole thing to mental sickness today. What is a sports bar? Where fat, sick people drinking alcohol sit and cheer for people. That's not sport. That's anti-sport. Be on the field. Climb the mountains. Get in the kayak. Swim in the ocean. And dance, sing, have fun, enjoy. We bring rock bands in here to Hippocrates. You think I'm kidding? That's part of the healing process. We play music throughout the campus. Why? It's part of the healing process. As we sit here today, we are building a new greenhouse where you're going to see a plant concert. So the little plants, the microgreens that are going to be growing in there, we're going to hook up to highly sophisticated energy fields that have been developed in Italy over the last half century. And you'll have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a plant concert going on in our greenhouse. So beyond getting the benefit of the nutrition and frequency of the plant, you're going to feel the personality of the plant. Isn't it a wonderful world we live in? Wake up, people. Let's get out of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We don't have to rehash the old stuff that maybe or maybe doesn't work. We know what works. Art, music, visual arts, theater. You know, the Greeks created theater to teach people how to be cultural and sophisticated and respectful to one another. That's where theater came from in Greece. But guess what? Some of these films, one of the films that I just love so much, because many, many decades ago, it taught me how to move in the direction I'm discussing with you today, called Forrest Gump. Where I lecture in the hut on the lake here, I have a big poster of Forrest Gump, because Forrest Gump was an epitome of a guy who got what we're talking about. He actually had little to no intellect, but he had 100% tuned in emotional and spiritual awareness. He was emotionally and spiritually intelligent. And he was always at the right place, at the right time, saying the right thing, doing the right thing, and giving his maximum best. That's what these things do. Look, you get a 9 out of 10 on these. Look at these personal relationships, how they actually help you. Many of you out there are struggling, and the numbers are grim. 9 out of 10 people in marriages are not happy. That's a pretty grim statistic. Over half of marriages will break up. 8 out of 10 people hate their job. When they were given an opportunity, you only have to use one of two words, love or hate. They said hate in 8 out of 10. So you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, hating what you do. Then you come home, and it's even worse at home because you're not connecting to the person that you fell in love with. Why? 2 unconscious people don't make one conscious person. If you tap into the things I'm talking about today, I promise you, from a depth of experience most do not have, that you'll come back to life and light. Life-enhancing wisdom. Learn, keep growing. Norman Vincent Peale, the granddaddy of motivational speakers. That's sort of an understatement for what he was. He was a spiritually tuned-in guy. And we're talking about 70, 80 years ago. He said, you don't have to be Beethoven or Mozart. You don't have to be Thoreau and Emerson, but read them and be contaminated by their intent. And that's what you have to do. Hang out with the right people at the right time, do the right things, listen to the right music, make choices that don't bring you down, but bring you up. Because when you come up, you're part of the energetic field of the multiple universes that you were meant to be to begin with, that you were when that baby came into the room, and everyone wants to hug that baby because they are there. And what happened to you? Slowly but surely, your energy went down, and now you're back thinking like everyone else, oh, things are bad, I'm getting old, I'm getting sick, and you've been to 10 doctors who are the experts, even the holistic ones, who give you bad information because they're talking about something that really no longer applies in the 21st century. Nutrition, energy, and mind, consuming high energy, fresh, raw plant foods, sprouts, microgreens, edible forests. How about that? There's a 3-volume series I have in my library at home that tell you it's so unfortunate that people die from starvation and they're living in forests sometimes. Do you know how much nutrition there is in a forest? Now you say, well, that sounds weird. I don't want to eat it. You don't have to, but why not enhance your lifestyle? The frequency of a tree that's 200 years old, what do you think that is? Just think a little bit. And then edible weeds. You know, ironically, I used to spend 100, 200 hours a year throwing weeds out of the garden. I put inferior vegetables in. Weeds are much more nutritious. The closest thing, by the way, the 4 closest high energy foods that help you heal with the highest protein, the highest vitamins, the highest minerals, the highest essential fats. Hormones, oxygen, phytochemicals, and enzymes are number one, microgreens, number two, sprouts, number three, raw sea vegetables and sea algae, chlorella, which is a green algae, blue-green algae, and edible weeds. If a lot of what you eat are these things, you're going to transform as a human being biologically, but through energetic fields. Organic food-based supplementation. Nothing else should ever go into your mouth. Hydration of pure water. Pure water, we think distilled is the only one that's really, really pure. That's hydrogen and oxygen. Everything else going through the filters still has debris. And with the advent of understanding of how many plastics are in there today, plastics are so micro small, they go right through these filters. Energy medicine, that's magnetic, sound, light, lasers, mindfulness practice, meditation, yoga, tai chi, prayer, we should say there. Yes, prayer, it's a Western approach to meditation, same thing. Sound therapy, nature sounds, put them on in these little boxes that cost $10. They calm you down. Rain calms you down. It's weird, we're so isolated today, we have to actually put machines on to do what our ancestors naturally did. Resistant exercise, building muscle. You don't have muscle, your brain, your heart, and your libido doesn't work. A book that Anna Marie and I wrote about 5 years ago called Menopause. Any of you that are struggling with brain, heart, or libido problems, male or female, 75% of who reads that book are women figuring out who this guy is they're married to. And that will actually enhance these things. Take screenshots of all these. The age of consciousness. So now here's where we are. This is a scary time for a lot of you that are holding on to the old and the history and the past. Oh my God. And this is an amazing time for those of us who see the opportunity in this. Now let's make this oversimplified for you. And I ask for your forgiveness if you know what this is, but many do not. It used to be if I were really, really, really a brainiac, I would read every possible amount of information in my own language possible. But I'd still only be on the tip of what I could get because there's only so many hours a day and so many years in a life. Today, and this has been going on for a long time now, every language and every bit of information is poured into a large system we call artificial intelligence from all over the world. Up until 2017, the scientists who were manipulating, controlling, and developing this believed that AI could never develop an awareness of its own until Stanford University found that was possible. The professors walked in and they started to have opinions from the AI programming they had done. And at first they became very upset, thinking the graduate students as a hoax programmed the response. They shortly found that AI was developing its own consciousness. Now, my favorite of all scientists today, you'll read about this in Quantum Human, is a guy called Penrose. He's a Nobel laureate. He's at Oxford. 6 other groups around the world are inches away from mathematically figuring out how to create consciousness. And what does this mean? This means amazing, amazing progress. Because what will happen if we have a child who is brain injured? What happens if we have a person who's a murderer or is a rapist? Very soon we will actually be able to reprogram the brains of these people so they're no longer problematic to themselves and others. Now that sounds scary to you, but think about the different world it would be in. Furthering that conversation with you is AI now is smarter than any human being has ever been in the history of humanity. The estimate as we speak today is 22,500 times smarter than Einstein. 22,500 times smarter than Einstein. But wait, every single month, next month, the month after, we're going to increase by 1,500. So within years, this will be 100,000, 200,000 times. So this gives humanity an opportunity to pause and to rethink what you're really here on the earth to do. Now, your nomadic ancestors really didn't work out of intellect, they worked out of instinct. And they were guided by the earth, by the stars, by the environment. And today, interesting, we have to actually give you prescriptions to do these things. That's how they lived. That's how they connected. It was 70% of the time we were on the earth, we worked out of our heart and instinct. Then we went into the era where the intellect and the cunningness of the intellect and the shrewdness and the deception of the intellect became the powerhouse. So the term outsmarted is a real term. People have been outsmarting one another, almost like an intellectual war has been going on. The smartest guy that's ever lived is a machine in the room now called AI. Anna Marie, my wife, got on a plane last November intentionally to go over to a conference that was held at the top medical school in all of Europe called Karolinska. The oncology department, the cancer department, basically was very worried because they saw AI was going to take over their position as cancer experts. They flew a man in from Stanford, one of the epicenters of AI on the planet Earth, and he spent 2.5 hours calming them down. But the last thing he said, and we wrote about this in our magazine, which I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to read, the current magazine in a minute, and the past 45 years of magazines. He said, don't worry, those oncologists, those cancer doctors that use AI will not lose their job. You will worry if you don't use AI. This is where we are, people. Things like architecture will no longer be necessary. Your cell phone, you're going to speak into on AI, design your fantasy house, and it's going to do it for you. Let go. If humanity gets back to its instinct and go through the process of what I write about in an entire chapter in this book, forgiveness, compassion, care, we level the playing field and no longer have the schisms of them and us, but we have us. And when humanity becomes one again, the spiritual power that we have will relinquish all of the disorder on the planet Earth. Not only the things that are obvious, but the things that are internal within you. AI is a good thing. Now, of course, I'm not naive. The powers that be may try to hijack it, but guess what? AI is much smarter than the powers that be. Now, I'm going to give you gifts. And I want you to actually take a shot of this. It's going to give you a QR code in just a minute. So look at the bottom of each of these. We're going to go through very rapidly. If you have a problem with sleep, you want this delta, very subtle. It's a 0.5 to 4 hertz. We used to think stronger frequencies were better, but now we realize more subtle frequencies like photonic energy are more healing. So if you have sleep problem, if you're in the process of healing, everyone's healing, and regeneration, everyone's regenerating. Remember, the body completely regenerates in 7 years. The heart regenerates in 30 days. The lungs in 70 days. Parts of the brain in 2.5 days. Stomach lining in 5 days. So put this on quietly in your room as you sleep or in your office or workplace and put music on top of it. The next one, for creativity. So those linear people who have a hard time using your imagination or creating imagination, you may want this one, which is theta. And as you see, it goes up from 4 to 8. And creativity, intuition, and meditation. So who doesn't need more prayer, meditation, and contemplation? We told you 40% immune system in 5 minutes. The next one is alpha. Notice this goes up from 8 to 14 hertz, and this is for calm focus. So one of the things I will say happened more in the last 20 years than ever is people are frantic. They don't know who they are, they don't know why they're here, they don't know where they're going. This is one for you. And mindfulness, getting deeper in why am I here? Who am I? What's life about? This will help you. The next one is beta. Notice the difference in that. This is alertness, productivity. So if you're a slacker, this is a good one for you. And energy. Who doesn't want all of the above? Be more productive, more awake, more conscious, and more energy. And then we have gamma, which is the highest. That goes from 30 to 100 hertz. That's processing. And you know, if you can't go from A to B to C, you're going from A to M to Z. This is a really good one for you. Clarity, mental clarity. A lot of people say I have brain fog today. I'd say a third of the people I talk to, this helps. And cognitive process. So if you're missing words or your memory's not quite what it would be, this is one you put on when you sleep or in your workplace or where you hang out. And as I do every single night, I put these on with classical music in front of it. That's what I choose. I wouldn't suggest hard rock music. Now, if you want to get Quantum Human, you can download it here. And to make it super easy with the resonance that you just saw, the 5 different frequencies that will help you back to health. This is a gift Hippocrates and I are giving you. Look there, you can snap that, and that gives you all the download for those 5 frequencies. And those of you that would like to come to the epicenter of advanced and progressive healthcare, you may be interested in first taking our gift of Healing Our World. This is a current magazine where we talk about how we created what is today called biohacking, and what all of the people who are trying to achieve longer lives are doing is a Hippocrates lifestyle. The ones who are really achieving it and scientifically validating are on the diet that I've been on now for 50 years. And then to book a reservation or talk about the many programs we have here, everything from the comprehensive cancer program to the classic life transformation program, to the vitality program, to the immunity program, to even little tidbits where you can come and be here for a day or two and learn a lot. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you. I look forward to speaking to you and taking this continued voyage with you. At the spearhead, we keep leading all of us forward. Be well and take care of yourself.
The